All right, American visitors, what you gotta say now? The suspect looks like you and me. Before we could even get the story, your narrative was preloaded and ready to go. Literally hopped right on the self-harm pipeline, didn't ya? You just exposed yourself for your support for hatred, you know that, right? Because you understood who Necklace could have as a potential enemy. And your tiny mind couldn't fathom anyone else doing this other than Black Americans. When it was one of you the whole fucking time. Dad's a retired cop, Utah resident, registered Republicans, no criminal history, suburb living, racist ancestors, same story over and over and over again. You just don't get it, do you? It's you! Always has been you. And it always will be you. You have no one else to blame for the world's problems. It's you people. Blaming Black people for everything that you do is so stupid and draining. This gaslighting strategy is just emotional immaturity weaponized into a political tool. A tool that costs lives. And look at the price that was paid. I mean, his last words were racist and the chef's kiss of irony. When will you learn? Your schools are targeted by your own. Because the predominantly Black schools are heavily guarded with law enforcement. Remember that? You still want America to believe that you aren't America's only problem? You better hope that every race that you harm doesn't join forces and make us the problem that needs to be solved. Because they would be justified.
I understand it now. I get it. Y'all can't stand the mirror that's been put in front of your face. All of the shit that y'all have been serving for the last few decades now against minority communities. Y'all can't stand having to look at it when it affects you. See, that's the thing. I finally get it. It took me a lot of time because I'm thinking, why are people reacting so violently to this? And it reminds me of the very first event that I had when I was escaping the alt-right pipeline and changing my mindset of that. Was that anger and violence. Because see, here's the thing. And here's the thing you really don't understand because you refuse to put yourself in other people's shoes and actually be empathetic to other people's situations. How do y'all think the Black community has felt for the last 5 years since George Floyd has died? All the memes y'all shared about that. How do you think they felt about the memes about Breonna Taylor, you know, the woman who was gunned down in her sleep during a no-knock raid? How do you think the Latino community has felt for the last 8 months with y'all cheering Trump for his deportation efforts and buying merch for Alligator Alcatraz and egging it on that human suffering is a great thing for this country? How do you think the gay community felt with all the jokes y'all made about the Pulse nightclub shooting a few years back in Orlando that killed 50 plus people in a predominantly gay club? You are truly experiencing for the first time how it tastes. The hatred y'all have been spilling out of your guts for years finally comes back at you. And that's the thing you don't like. But you know what? The funny thing about all of it is, where's the Black community calling for war with how you have treated them? Where's the Latino community going up in arms and calling for war? And no, fighting off ICE and protesting, that is not war. That is civil disobedience, and that is our First Amendment right. But calling for the bloodshed of innocent civilians because they make jokes about a dead man who spent his entire political career actively making these communities worse with his rhetoric and their situations worse? Where's their calls for war? See, you're just now kind of coming out of the illusion that your hatred and bigotry that you claim is free speech is free of consequences from the actions of what you just said. Because you only ever say it online. Because when you do say it to someone's face, you almost always outnumber them 5-1. You almost always catch people in situations where they're at a disadvantage, so when you say these things, you're protected. But now with Charlie, in his situation, you're having to come to reality for the first time of the vile and awful things that you believe in, and you don't like it. You're having to eat that. You're having to stare it in the face, and what's your first response? To be violent and angry towards innocent people. Because you scream that everyone's entitled to their opinion. You love dark humor, but the second you see people making jokes about Charlie Kirk being gone, oh, that's too far? Oh, that's too far. The Halloween costumes of George Floyd being strangled to death. Oh, let's not even glaze over the fact that I'm seeing a bunch of posts going, congratulations, George Floyd, for being 5 years sober, because he's dead. But now you want us to care. You're now noticing just how little actual emotion, like how little actual empathy and sympathy exist amongst your own ranks. Because the funniest thing about this entire situation is the fact that it was one of your own that killed him. It was a 22-year-old white kid from Utah who came from a conservative GOP family that loved Trump. And he was a registered Republican. So if you really, really, really think you want war or bloodshed with innocent people, how about you look in a mirror and why don't you sit there for a few days and actually digest and break down your beliefs? Because I'm sure it's screaming at you from the inside. I remember feeling that a lot whenever I was younger in the alt-right, was there's this interior voice that's screaming that the things you are saying and doing are wrong, but you don't care because it's getting you brownie points with the people around you because you've surrounded yourself with hateful people. How about you actually think for a few days on your politics and your beliefs? Because at the moment, y'all are disgusting. Y'all call us disgusting for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. We think you're disgusting because really Charlie Kirk is no different than any child that has been shot in a school for the last fucking 2 decades. The things we have been trying to prevent, the things we've been trying to stop, the pain that these incidents cause families, yeah, how about you think about which side you've been fighting on that for a while?
Hi, beautiful friends. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for clicking this video. I truly appreciate your love and support. Today's video is a bit heavy, but I'm glad it's exposing some very real truth that some people will find it uncomfortable. Charlie Kirk's death has got the internet divided. Some are outraged, some are indifferent, and others are just openly celebrating. But beyond the reactions, this moment is also shining a light on America's deep hypocrisy, its racial double standards, and also its ongoing crisis on the gun violence. The clips that I've gathered today are not sugarcoating anything. They are exposing the brutal truth as it is. So make yourself comfortable and let's get into it.
Okay, I'm going to make one video about Charlie Kirk and then I am never going to say his name again. We're not celebrating his death, okay? We're not celebrating it. We're just not sad about it. Because the fact of the matter is, we see it for what it is. Another senseless act of gun violence in America, something that could have been prevented. And we know that because we have been fighting to change it for decades. We have been screaming into the void for any kind of sensible gun legislation. And guess who's been pushing back every step of the way? Conservatives, people on the right, people like Charlie Kirk, who said things like gun deaths in this country are just a cost of the Second Amendment. So yeah, it's maddening to us that you guys now are clutching your pearls and feigning moral outrage because we're not devastated. The fact of the matter is, this man was an asshole, okay? He spent his entire life pushing sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, violent rhetoric. He relished in cruelty. He delighted in the suffering of others. So I'm sorry if I'm not going to waste an ounce of grief on this man. I'm just not. But that doesn't mean I'm celebrating his death. That doesn't mean I think he should have been shot. I don't. I see it for what it is. Someone was senselessly murdered and he was an asshole. Those two things can be true. So don't for 1 second think that we're celebrating this. None of us are excited that yet another fucking person was unnecessarily shot in this country. But that doesn't mean that we will miss him.
For all of you fake Christians that are all up in arms, okay, and you're weaponizing the Bible and you said nothing about the victims like E.G. Carroll or the 25 women that he assaulted or sitting on his butt while January 6th was happening, while officers were getting beaten. Thoughts and prayers, they're patriots. Over 500 mass shootings a year. Okay? Thoughts and prayers. Uvalde, Sandy Hook, nothing. Thoughts and prayers. There's just nothing we can do. And then it happens with Charlie Kirk. And all of a sudden, you guys are coming out of the cupboards like cockroaches on Facebook. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. This is a spiritual warfare. And then more of you evangelicals are, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the final straw. The Second Amendment. Oh, this is not going to end poorly. I want this to happen and this to happen. I want you to remember that. And I want you, when you're going to church this Sunday, to pretend to be a Christian with your F Joe Biden bumper sticker and your Joe and the Ho flag. I want you to remember that when you're sitting at church, when you're pretending to be a Christian, and I want you to think about your reaction to those Epstein survivors that are begging the president to meet with them and he refuses. Was your reaction just as strong? Did you defend them just like you did Uvalde, Sandy Hook, Parkland, the politicians in Minnesota? Did you have that exact same emotional anger and outrage? And if not, ask yourself why. They had families too. They had moms and dads, grandparents, uncles. Yes, Charlie Kirk also had family. But he also didn't care about the family of the women that are survivors. He didn't give a damn about them. They all have families. So you think about that and ask yourself on Sunday, what would Jesus think about my actions? What I said today and yesterday? How I did nothing about his children that were set up to heaven, but yet Charlie Kirk was somehow the final straw. You think about that before you start weaponizing the scripture again and using righteous anger.
This isn't just a man crying. This is a biological implosion in 4K, bawling not for the cosmos, not for the dead, but because Charlie Kirk finally checked out of history with a bullet in the neck. And somehow, this creature thought the proper response was to stream his own meltdown, with a "Join My Fan Club" scrawled across his head like a digital coupon code. Look closer. The forehead slope isn't just receding. It's an alpine ski ramp of deficiency, with "Join My Fan Club" hovering there like a colonial banner over a collapsing fort. In another culture, the forehead was sacred. The Yoruba marked it with destiny. The Hindu adorned it with tilaka. The Maori tattooed it with mana. And here, this one turned his cranial real estate into a discount sign for pity subscriptions. The eyes, swollen, crimson, tear-logged, not eyes of grief, but biological faucets, dripping European brine into the void. Each tear is less about Kirk and more about his own collapse, a saline autobiography of weakness. The nose is pinched and collapsed, a skeletal austerity project dangling over a mouth that quivers like a damp hymn book, and the mouth itself, downturned, a collapsed drawbridge leading to an empty castle. The jawline offers nothing. It is the geological opposite of strength, sagging, formless, like Europe's excuses for genocide. Meanwhile, other civilizations engraved strength into bone. The Inca cut mountains, the Nubians carved pyramids, the Maori weaponized jaws into haka. He weaponized nothing but sniffling weakness, and those hands, writhing like tapeworms, gesticulating with the limp conviction of wet laundry. Not the hands of a mourner, not the hands of a fighter. These are the appendages of a man who can't hold his own dignity, can't hold his tears, can't even hold his own face together. While Egyptians wept in ceremony to elevate the dead into eternity, this one weeps live on mic, auditioning his grief as TikTok content. While the Ashanti turned sorrow into gold-adorned procession, he turns his into a fan club recruitment drive scribbled across his forehead. While civilizations mapped constellations to find meaning, his constellation is nothing more than tear streaks, carving rivers through pallid skin. This isn't grief. This is self-advertisement via collapse. A man who mourns not with ritual, not with dignity, but with a Sharpie scrawl and a mucus flood. A face that doesn't cry. It commercializes its own breakdown. So cry on, little billboard skull. Cry on. Europe fell once, and you're falling every frame per second, with Join My Fan Club as your gravestone. Gope.
Alright, beautiful friends, welcome back. Now, let's talk. You know, these people in today's clips, it's not like it's their first time or it's my first time to come across their content. I've been following them for a while and I've noticed that most of the time I watch them, I learn something, like I pick up something important from their contents. They are always exposing the brutal truth without fear or even favoring anybody. They just say it the way it is. Like people say that you call a spade, not a big spoon, right? And now, the part that they're saying, stop demanding empathy for someone who never believed in empathy. That really got me. Just like the man in one of the clips said that it's not about celebrating this month's death. I also said it in the last video. I feel like this whole thing is not so much about celebration. It's about responding to the impact of his words and action. And that is something that so many people will disagree on. Like, why are you doing this instead of mourning? I understand, especially in a time like this. And I feel a little bit disturbed. Even though the alleged killer has turned out to be a white person, I've been still asking myself, what if the person had turned out to be a person of color? What would the reaction be with all this chanting that white people must retaliate, blah, blah, blah? Even though it didn't turn out to be how they thought it would be, black people are still not safe, to a point that black universities have gone into lockdown. Historically, this is not something new, but this moment is just exposing the racial double standards in the US. And this is also a reminder that in America, black people are rarely given the benefit of doubt. When I saw the picture of that man and I saw the age, I was like, oh my goodness, who could have sent this young man to do something like this? Or what could have triggered him to go this far? And till now, I can't really process like what exactly. Even if somebody told him to do it, people have brains, not so. And I think at this point, I personally am already afraid of the US with all this gun violence. It's really scary. Mass shootings. Because I heard people talking about mass shooting that happened the very day this man was assassinated. I think at this point, the government needs to act quickly, because from the stories that I've seen or even watched so far, it's always pew violence. And now I understand that in the US, it's like legal to possess a gun, like for protection. Unfortunately, people are using it for other reasons, like against each other, It has become one of the reasons why people are living in fear. And like I said earlier, if the government does not do anything about this, it will get worse. And believe me, no community will be safe. So when you see different reaction towards Charlie Kirk's death, it's not just about the man himself. It's about what his life and legacy stood for. If you keep on pushing negativity and it finally turns to be you, it's not going to sit so well. So just learn from this one. And to my black people, please take care of yourselves. Do not get involved in any of this, because as you can see, just one shh will get you in trouble. So just be careful out there, because your safety also matters. Just be careful. I pray that may God protect everyone. and may He also open our eyes to see the truth for what it is. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Do well to like the video, comment down below what you think about it, subscribe to share it, and I will meet you in my next one. Bye.